Today we will start off at 8.11 with a report from Michelle McCollum, Senior Manager, Strategic Development, Office of the Chief Administrative Officer regarding the University Work Plan. And if we can bring report 8.2.5 forward as well. That is also to do with the University Blue Ribbon Panel. All right. The floor is yours, Michelle. Thank you.
Again this morning to provide you with another update on the University Work Plan. So as you know, just a little bit of background, the province did announce funding for a university in Brampton back in October. They released the call for expressions of interest in January, and the first phase of submissions is very close, March 6th. Universities have to provide their expression of interest to the province. So we're here today to provide you with an update on the work that we've been doing in the last 2 weeks. Bob is also going to share a visit he had to Research Park in Waterloo, and we're also going to discuss the University Blue Ribbon Panel and the report on 8.2.5, the future role of that panel. So we have been continuing to work and have conversations with the province. We have set up a meeting with the province on March 8th following the submission so we can get some more information from them. We're continuing working with our businesses. We've had some excellent meetings very recently, and our top employers committing to want to have further conversations and really get involved with the university initiative, which has been very heartening. And we've also extended our outreach from our top 30 employers to our top 50 employers that we are targeting over the coming months. And those business partners, as I say, have really been talking about how they can get more involved, which has been fantastic. We had our first focus group with the Board of Trade. We had some of our employers there along with Peel Police as well. And it was very interesting, they talked about how interested they would be in having an opportunity for research and development. And the police gave an example of where they're working with an existing institution right now. An example they gave was working on where someone is arrested under the Mental Health Act, they have to wait with that person until they're admitted by a hospital. Wait times were 6-7 hours, and working with a university student who worked with the hospitals, they've managed to get that wait time down to under an hour, so 2 police officers. So that's just an example of something you might not think about, where there are opportunities for our employers, and whether that's public or private, to really get involved in this opportunity. We have been continuing to work with universities who are submitting applications, providing them with the information that they need. And as I say, that's March the 6th, which is a very, very tight deadline for them, but they're working hard on those proposals. Our social media campaign has really taken off, and thanks very much to committee for your feedback and encouraging us to do this. So we've had some really great results. Our impressions have exceeded more than 100,000 users, which is double what we normally see, only to be surpassed by our visit from Prime Minister Trudeau, which we can't quite compete with. Bob has really become a social media star. He's found a new vocation in life, and he's really taken it on board and has been very excited. So again, thank you for that feedback, and our social media has really taken off. And thank you for retweeting and helping support that campaign as well. So I'll hand over to Bob, who's going to give us some more information about his visit last week.
Thanks, Michelle, and thanks for the kudo on your appearance on the social media. Through you, Chair, to the members of the committee. First meeting we had on this topic, I referred to one of the major economic benefits of having a new university, any new post-secondary institution, is that the relationship between the business community, research, innovation, and commercialization. So we've taken a look at several of the topics, the studies, but we had an opportunity to visit with the Carol Stewart, who's the manager of the Research Park at David Johnson Research Technology Park at Waterloo. It's initially funded in 2002 by both senior governments and then City of Waterloo and Regional Waterloo for lesser shares, but a lot of public investment to get that going through a university that all of you are well aware of that's into this innovation, into this space. We had a chance to tour the site, to meet with several people on the site, hear their experiences, but also hear things went right, went wrong, get a good history of the piece. The Research Park is nearly completed. They've got 55 companies that have graduated over the years since about mid last decade. We heard about a unicorn. For those who are aware in venture capital and angel investment, unicorn is a startup that becomes $1 billion valuation. So one company out of Waterloo has hit that already, and they're looking to have more and more. Already, there are currently about 75 companies plus on site that are in various stages of incubation startup on site. There's a number of senior companies there that want to build off of the relationship to the innovation companies, as well as the access to the university, which is across the street. You'll see some of the sites here and the kind of the buildings these have built over time. One of the challenges they're seeing, and you've heard from us about the university, is having the other services for not only the students, but also people who are employed here. Restaurants, places to relax, recreational facilities. So as part of our planning, of course, how is this built in to where we want a university? But also, with expression of interest, it's been kind of what's minimal that the province wants. This would be kind of something that may be over and above, which would help drive economic growth. With that, I want to mention that over the years, about 6,700 jobs have been created through this research park, 55 companies graduating. You've had over $600 million investment, and they're looking to have another 3,000 jobs over the next several years, growing to about another 9,000 plus over a decade. So this is quite a job generator, investment generator. And we would like to see that we can develop this with the selected university to build on this over time to get these same benefits. Finally, there's 26 such research parks in Canada and only 6 or 7 in Ontario. So there's an opportunity that they think differently about how we look at the university, how we look at our relationship between Sheridan and this new university to build on this and really help grow the business community in this city, not only for now, but over the next decades. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Bob. So on to discussion about the future role of the University Blue Ribbon panel. So we did meet with the panel met on February 15th, 2 weeks ago. The majority of the panel were in attendance, and Mr. Bill Davis was on a conference call from Florida, where he was waving to Terry Miller as he went by on his cruise ship. The panel members had a really good discussion, and they did agree that they felt that the original mandate that they had been given has been fulfilled. So the panel members, it was acknowledged the tremendous work that they did for this initiative and bringing this forward into getting us where we are today. So the recommendation in that report is that since the mandate of the panel has been achieved, that the panel be dissolved and members of the panel be formally thanked for their contribution to the initiative. So our next steps, we will continue to assist universities with their applications and have those ongoing discussions with the province, continuing to have the really successful meetings that we're having with our top employers here in Brampton, continuing our, Bob's delighted about this, continuing the social media campaign and looking at how we're taking forward our engagement strategy and thinking that through how we're going to work with the province on that. And then our next update will be to the next Committee of Council, which will be on April the 5th. So you can see we're still working hard, we're very confident, and we're working with universities and the province to make sure that we're very successful in this initiative and bring the best university facility to Brampton. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle and Bob. Stick around, we have some questions for you. Councillor Moore?
Okay. My
Sorry.
name disappeared.
New board.
It's okay. This is more of a comment, I guess, around if you go on the websites for a lot of the cities that have universities today, they're part of an association called Towns and Gowns. And if I had a chance to go on their website, it really speaks to wherever Bob went to. Oh, there you are. Sort of, you mentioned on social media, you know, the infrastructure, the services, the programs, and how we organize our city to be a host city for a university. It's not just a matter of them moving in. It is something where we have a lot of planning. You know, right now we seem to be focused on, you know, the location and the, you know, who our partner's going to be and, you know, getting the shovel in the ground and that kind of thing. But as a city, we have some homework to do, and this association might be able to provide us a bit of a map, a roadmap to, or a menu, if you will, of things that we need to consider as we prepare to be the host. You know, you're hosting the Pan Am Games, there's certain things that you get in place. Well, we're going to host a community, and there's some building blocks that we need to look after. This might not be the only organization, but I noticed when I was on the website for the various cities that do have a university today, many of them are part of this, and I think it's part of us doing the kind of legwork that we need to get ready. Thank you.
For you, Chair, to Councilor Moore, very good insight. We're also looking at this other organization called the Association of University Research Parks. They're across North America. Canada has its own chapter of 26 such parks and growing. But it's exactly the same points you made, the same sense of all are different, but all need a number of same elements. And the interesting thing of the Waterloo one, given all our knowledge of the University of Waterloo being always a strong, innovative, outreach, strong business co-op, one of the largest co-ops in the world, they took time to learn how to really reach into the business community and make that part work. So as we develop this initiative, we'll take time and need time with the business community, with our colleagues across the city here to really make that initiative work relatively not 50 years in the future, but as soon as we can start the ball going with the university and build it almost into their initial DNA.
Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Moore. Councillor Willens.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I guess this is really under the next step of the Blue Ribbon Panel. In light of you folks of dissolving the Blue Ribbon Panel, I'm wondering if maybe under next steps, maybe it might be of interest for staff to maybe ask the former chair, I guess, of the Blue Ribbon Panel, maybe ask the former chair, Honorable Bill Davis, if he'd like to still continue to work with staff on the university proposal, being that he was the one that brought Sheridan College here, and Sheridan College now is going to be 12,000 students next year with the trade school, see how it's growing. So just wondering if we could get, I don't know if I really want to put in a motion, but maybe if staff could maybe comment on asking Mr. Davis to continue to work with the staff and council on the university effort.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Councillor Willens. We did have a discussion with the Blue Ribbon Panel that there at points where staff can, it would be useful for us to seek help from the former panel members, that we could do that. So that's something that we did discuss at the meeting for all of the panel members who are relevant in giving us information.
I'll wait. Okay, I'll wait to hear the other members before I comment back. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Willens. Mayor Jeffrey.
So I think we've had a very positive conversation this morning, and I think talking about next steps is really important. But one of the things Councillor Moore raises is one of the things we're really going to have to get our mind around, and as the chair of planning, affordable housing will be that passage of zoning and thinking ahead for the kind of influx of people, not just students, but people who want to teach there, or people who are visiting, family members who visit students. So I think we certainly need to get our head around that. So those next steps will have to take place on a different forum, and that's really important to start planning for now. And certainly the conversations that I've been able to have with the federal government, there are other places that we can apply for money from affordable housing perspective that we need to pursue, from a green energy and an innovation and a healthcare perspective, that all can fund affordable housing but aren't in the traditional pots of money we usually apply for. And I just wanted to comment on former Premier Bill Davis. I think you would have a hard time stopping him being part of what goes on with the university. I would say that he is someone who and his son are very, very engaged in working with one of the partners to see if they can help them. So I think we need to just be a little bit careful that we don't provide any additional resources to any one partner than anybody else. And I think Mr. Davis and his family have a winner that they'd like, and I don't know who's going to be the successful partner, but certainly Mr. Davis and his family have been extraordinarily helpful, and I can't imagine that they wouldn't continue to. They call me on a regular basis. They call the Premier on a regular basis. They call the Minister on a regular basis. They're still talking with the Deputy in Education as well. So I think that they are, I don't know that you need to formalize it. I think they are very, very engaged, and we appreciate their expertise on an ongoing basis. But again, they're working with one of the specific partners. I don't want to give anybody an advantage over anybody else, and I think it's important for us to let the process take shape as it will. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Medeiros?
Thank you, through the chair. Just picking up on some of the comments, I guess earlier by Councillor Moore than by the mayor regarding affordable housing. Just interesting, yesterday many of the councillors, we attended Regeneration. Basically, and some part of the discussion was, what are we going to do with some of the homelessness that exists downtown? So that also has to be contemplated in any type of affordable housing strategy that we have, is that, we talk about revitalizing our downtown, but we're not going to be displacing and pushing to the outskirts our homelessness. So I think that has to be sort of a consideration on what we do with them on the downtown. Regarding, I guess, a comment by Chair Willens, or Councillor Willens, I do agree, as having been a member of the Blue Ribbon panel, and certainly, the former Premier is Mr. Brampton, and if I just recall now, I think I pass it over to staff to just confirm. It was left from the perspective where there was a comment by, I'm not sure who it was, that individual talents would be called upon as required. So meaning that the panel, meaning staff at any time, could go to any of the panel members they thought would help with any aspect of, be it the application or any work that's ongoing. So I guess to formalize something that already exists, I'm not sure what would be the purpose. And certainly, I think if you look at that picture on page 5, every, I guess notwithstanding the councillors, but certainly every individual who was part of that panel really brought some really unique, important individual talents. And, so I'm not sure where this is going. I'm not sure if Councillor Willens is proposing something specific, but I'll wait to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Medeiros. Councillor Willens, back on the board.
Can I go on first?
Oh.
Well, yeah, I appreciate the comments on that, but I mean, if I need to put a motion forward, I will. I thought we could just do a friendly request, but I mean, I think I needed to put a motion forward to formalize that staff contact Mr. Davis. I'm not talking about the whole Blue Ribbon. He was the chair of the Blue Ribbon panel, so he would bring all the inputs from every member that was on there. You guys certainly had lots of good input and stuff, but I would probably feel better if we did do a motion, but I'll wait for Council Moore before I put the motion forward.
Councillor Moore, I was just looking, Mr. CAO, whether you wanted to comment on that or listen to Councillor Moore first. Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Moore.
I think it's important to formalize it. The university panel, regardless of what conversations you had there, staff aren't bound by the decisions that come out of the university panel. I think that giving formal direction from council to keep Mr. Davis engaged, or an invitation to keep him engaged, is sending a message to staff that we endorse you reaching out. Otherwise, it's a conversation at a committee that has no formal direction to staff. I mean, it certainly isn't information that the rest of us on council were privy to. So I think, I as a member of council am quite comfortable with giving that direction. And it sends a message of others who may wish to be involved as well, that, we've given that direction to staff specifically.
Again, coming in this late and meeting with the Blue Ribbon panel, there's talent on that panel that we were going to have access to. If you start to put a motion in with one specific, you might create some, tension with the rest. So we know that how prominent he is and what he's done for this community, and we'll be reaching out to him as needed. But I'm a little puzzled on if you do this formally, what direction are you giving us? You know, we still have to work as a staff group on this project.
Okay, here's where I'm coming from. You've made reference to a conversation that took place at the Blue Ribbon Panel Committee meeting. That you agreed that staff will reach out to them on an as-needed basis. Does staff feel they have direction to do that from council? Because the Blue Ribbon Panel is a panel of council now. It's not, a specific initiative as it was previously out of the mayor's office. Council approved the budget, and so it seems to me that council needs to give that specific direction. To you, like otherwise, I'm not sure how staff feel empowered. A lot of things happen at our committee meetings. Resolutions get passed, or motions get passed at committee meetings, but they have no standing unless a member of this council pulls out that resolution and ratifies it.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. So when, back in November, we presented a staff work plan to committee, and before that we had worked with the Blue Ribbon Panel, and the Blue Ribbon Panel were privy to, members of the panel were privy to confidential information before council were aware of that information. Now, we agreed back in November that that switch would be made and that council would be the lead, that staff would be reporting to council. I think where we would just need to understand and have more clarity is where does that leave us? You know, the discussion that we had with the panel was very informal, and in the same way as we could reach out to any other member of the community who we believe would help us. Now, there's absolutely no question that Mr. Davis has, influence, and he's been a fantastic, mentor and person to work with in this process. I think we would need to understand and have clarity around where does that leave us as staff with council. Because we would not be divulging any confidential information to any other individual in the community before we informed council and committee of that information. So does that mean that we would have confidential discussions with Mr. Davis before we would inform committee or council of that information? I think that's where we would need some clarity.
I think we're making a mountain out of a molehill. I think, at least from my perspective, and others can speak on their own, I think that having staff work with somebody with the profile and presence of Mr. Davis is a good thing. I also agree with dissolving the university panel, but I think from a public perspective, having his name associated with the work of staff is not a bad thing. That's where I'm coming from. If you are concerned about sharing confidential information with Mr. Davis, I don't have a problem with that. If he is of value at the table for any of your conversations, then share with him the information. But if you feel you have direction to go to any member on that committee and have the conversation, are you asking for that same authority to share confidential information with them? Or you're suggesting you'd come to council first and then go back to them? Well, I think that's just layering on a process that delays things, that slows things up. We want to keep this moving in a smooth, logistical fashion forward. Thank you.
Okay. Lots of questions now. Lots of speakers. Mayor Jeffrey?
So I wish we weren't having this conversation. I think that I tried to allude to this earlier, that first of all, I want to thank staff for all the work they've done. And I appreciate, Bob, your social media career having grown as a result of what we've been doing. But I think we're getting down to some very important conversations about what potential this city has as a university partner. And as I alluded earlier, everyone came to the table with the same goal, to bring a university to Brampton, and we were successful. I think the challenge is we want someone in a ceremonial capacity, for sure, and Mr. Davis can be that person. But I worry that if it's not our staff that are talking with the ministry, that we may not all be speaking and moving in the same direction. And it's really important that we don't give mixed messages to the province of Ontario. It's really important. And we really need to be speaking with one voice. So, as I said, I believe Mr. Davis and certainly J. Paul Massey Singh, who was the vice chair, worked very hard together to bring a group of people who had never worked together, and to bring a very thoughtful process to a successful completion. So I think if you're asking for individuals to be part of this, I would say a friendly amendment would be to ask J. Paul Massey Singh to also be there, because I think he put a lot of time and professional advice to the committee that I think resulted in such a good outcome for us. And I'm grateful to both of them for doing it. But again, I think we're getting to the point where we're going to have some very specific conversations with the province of Ontario. And some people on the committee have a preference as to who they want that partner to be. And we want to be giving all of the information to anyone who's interested and to help them put the best proposal forward, or expression of interest as it's called now. I don't think any of us want to be leaning towards one partner or another at this point, because the province is going to make that decision, and we want to make sure whoever those partners are, that they have an equal opportunity to be successful. I don't want to be seen as giving one university an edge over another because of a friendship or a relationship. So I think that was the goal from the very beginning, to try and provide a really open and transparent and accountable process so that we had confidence in what the final outcome is. So I would ask through to the mover a friendly motion, if you're going to do it, to at least include the vice chair. I think out of respect that would be a reasonable, if you're going to do it. I'm not sure you need to, but so that would be my suggestion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Medeiros.
Thank you, through the chair. I think it's kind of interesting. We're trying to talk about a motion that hasn't been put on the floor yet. So I guess we're anticipating something. There's a lot of anticipation in the room, but certainly I would agree with the amendment. J. Paul Massey Singh, with all due respect to former Premier, had chaired many parts of the meeting. I think the second aspect is, staff pointed out that he was waving at Terry Miller out in Florida. So I'm not sure if there's even interest on his part to be part of this or to be an advisor. So unless there's information that we don't have here as a council, I guess you would have to extend that invitation to see if you'd be willing to be part of it. The third aspect I would find is that nothing precluded staff from already going to individuals, and obviously Mr. Davis would be someone you would want to consult with. But at this stage, we're at a very technical, bureaucratic stage of the process. It's very process orientated, and staff are going off doing technical studies. At this time, I'm not sure what type of political clout that we're looking for. My understanding, we had a prime minister visit, city of Brampton for the first time in its history. And, that had to do with, a mayor who's leading. We had someone who has an opportunity to call any cabinet minister wants in government. So if it's from a political clout perspective, I don't understand it. If it's from a technical perspective, I think we have highly trained staff, and staff are doing their due diligence. And certainly as a leader of the community, there'd be an opportunity as other leaders to provide their voice to, aspects of the university. But I just think right now we're in this really admitted process, which is based on technical studies, which is based on, bureaucrats from the different levels working together and working with the institutions. So I'm not sure if formalizing something and creating more work on staff to have to, brief an individual in our community on the ongoing work. I think, once we get to that stage where there might be that clear horse who's in the front runner, and there's some opportunity for consultation with, certain leaders of the community, I would say that, rightfully so. But it's really hard to distinct one individual from the panel and others. Terry Miller, I have enormous respect for Terry Miller, who has had a long history, especially in the area of education, who's been a big proponent. I would say, add him as an amendment as well. So I'm just not sure where we go with this and if we're just creating work. So I'll wait, till we get a motion on the floor, and I guess we'll have to speak to the motion again. But I just think this is not the right opportunity to do this, and I think we need staff to have the independence, and they need to be fully focused and concentrate on working with, their partners instead of consulting, and trying to have to do more work and ensuring that, everyone's being briefed. I think they're doing the responsibility now is briefing council, and they have direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maderos. Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I suppose we could go through everybody on the blue ribbon panel and try to include them, and I don't think we want to do that. But I do think that there is some merit in keeping Mr. Davis involved. He certainly has influence over a lot of different things in this province, whether it be business, the province itself, or universities. But I would suggest there's going to be a motion, maybe that motion be that the staff reach out to Mr. Davis on an as-needed basis, so that Mr. Davis wouldn't actually be sitting there, he wouldn't have to share any confidential information, but on an as-needed basis. I mean, to me, Mr. Davis is probably our greatest asset. And staff, Councillor Willen's staff could reach out when they think they need him at that point. I would support that, but I don't think I would support putting anyone on the blue ribbon panel on a team with staff. It's in our hands now, not anybody else's. So I think Councillor Willen's had a motion, didn't he? I don't want to. You mentioned it, so I don't want to step on your toes here.
Okay.
If you're agreeable, Councillor Wilens, I'll put that on, but I think you were writing something up. So.
Okay. Councillor Gibson, thank you. Councillor Willens.
This basically says what Councillor Gibson has put forward, but I'll read it anyway. That a motion be put forth that staff contact Mr. Davis to invite him to be engaged on the university work as staff sees fit in the areas that would assist staff. Right, good.
Okay, are you,
That's I'm doing right.
that's the motion? Okay. Councillor Sprovieri?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I understand the what some of the committee members are trying to achieve here, and is to recognize the good work that the committee did, and not to keep some involvement until this is all finalized. But I tend to agree that the committee, the panel, did their work. They achieved their goal. They brought us. They were instrumental in bringing us the making it happen. The university, and I don't know whether from here on whether it's really any just from a ceremonial type of purpose, perhaps. But certainly, I believe that right now, the issues that have to be dealt with is choosing a partner, choosing a location, dealing with the funding, and I don't know whether any of the panel members really can contribite towards the next steps. I think that this is something that, and I agree with the other comments, that it has to be done within the city system now and the province. So, I don't have a problem with supporting Councillor Willen's motion to recognize the good work that the panel did, and perhaps staff, if they ever come up with a situation where they need to get some consultation, that's great. At least we make them feel that if we need them, they're there for us. So,
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
Thank you, Councillor Sprovieri. Councillor Dillon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to ask perhaps if the city solicitor could provide maybe comments if there's any legal concerns to disclosing or providing information.
Through you to the counselor, I can't suggest anything specific. It will be dependent on the circumstances which arise. The staff would be careful to disclose information which is appropriate for the circumstances, whatever they may be, but I can't give you an answer in advance. It's not predictable where it goes.
So it would be at the discretion of staff to provide whatever pertinent information it is to the individual.
That's correct.
Thank you, Councillor Dillon. Councillor Barros, I believe this is your third time.
Well, no, it's the first time speaking to the motion.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, to, I guess, the mover of the motion, if you can, I just don't understand specifically what his role would be to staff that doesn't exist now. So it's a motion, but basically what its staff has the availability to do currently. So if you can just be specific, what do you envision staff would go speak to Mr. Davis about?
Okay, are you directing that
To the mover of the
to
motion?
staff or the mover?
No,
Okay.
mover of the motion. So I don't understand the motion if we already have this.
For you, Mr. Chair, so the motion from Councillor Willens is essentially moving staff recommendations 1 and 2 in the report 8.2.5 and adding a third recommendation that staff be requested to contact the Honourable Bill Davis to invite him to be engaged in the ongoing university work program as staff sees fit to assist in areas that Mr. Davis may be able to provide assistance.
Again, so what if the mover of the motion could tell me and articulate exactly, because again, if the staff already have that ability, in what areas do you think that the Premier would be able to help staff accordingly?
Councillor Willens needs to go back on.
Through you, Chair. I'm sure you've been around the community a long time, Councilor Majeros, and Mr. Davis does have a lot of influence at the university level. He brought Sheridan College to Brampton. He's very well versed in dealing with these type of educational system, and he is building connected at Queen's Park with the deputy minister of education. He's well liked by him. So, as I said, it's just it's up to staff to bring him in as an ad-need basis, I suppose. See, staff could say we don't need him. We got him under control, but it's just more or less formally to ask him. He may say no.
So my understanding is because of his political clout, and you said his
Not only
relationship with the deputy minister.
And also with the education background.
Okay. Now, I guess the second part is that if I guess we pass this, if he requires meetings with staff and asks staff to be scheduled, do staff have this pressure now that they have to? So it's as staff requires.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the motion moved by Councillor Willens has the condition as staff sees fit, so it would be at staff's initiation and invitation only.
Which is no different, again, to what currently we have, and that's the understanding. I guess, again, this direction is just one of these things that just doesn't make sense because we have this direction already. So the second thing is if we do put this motion in, I would ask that you add J. Paul Massey Singh as part of a friendly amendment, and we also provide staff the opportunity to consult with him as they see fit. So I'd like to move that amendment. That's fine. I'd like to recorded vote on the amendment, please.
Okay. We'll go to Councillor Miles first. Or do we need to vote on the amendment? Okay. I just took her off.
The Blue Ribbon panel did a really good job. I'd just like to be heard. The Blue Ribbon panel did a really good job of getting us where we are today. And it was at the direction of this council that now the role becomes ours. It's our job now as the City of Brampton to ensure that we are successful in getting the university. There has been a huge amount of time, resources, and expertise by our staff and the Blue Ribbon Panel, in fact, in trying to understand exactly what it is that is going to make us successful with the province of Ontario, but I think even more importantly, successful in getting the kind of university that we want for the city of Brampton. I don't believe, I think the ball's in our court now, and I think that we should be the decision makers. I mean, I sat on the Blue Ribbon Panel. I sat on the Blue Ribbon Panel. I'm not going there. But I believe time now is for council to take the ball and make the decisions based on what is best for this municipality. If you want to put a motion on the floor that says that staff can consult with the Blue Ribbon Panel as needed, I don't have any problem with that. I do have a problem with singling out individuals because Blue Ribbon Panel members as a whole, each and every one of them, have an idea as to what they want to see. I am very worried about making sure that we go to the province of Ontario in support of all of the different university partners. Because the province said to us quite clearly, we're going to pick the university. It's not the city of Brampton. We can only be there in a supportive role. So we have to make sure that the message that the province gets is our message. And that's the problem with the motion, because members of the panel have preferences. And we don't want anything to muddy the waters, because at the end of the day, we want this university. And we want the best partner. And the best partner is the partner that the province deems is the best partner. So please, don't muddy the waters. Either don't have a motion and just give staff direction that you have this amazing panel of people with a lot of experience that you can turn to as needed. But to start handpicking, it sends wrong messages. And I think my bigger concern is that we're the ones that have to be in charge now. Members of council, I think that all of the information should be coming to council, whether it's in camera or in a public forum, depending upon the individuals. We are the ones that are going to make the decision, because that's what we're elected to do. And please, don't muddy the waters with this. Give staff direction. Work with the panel as you need to, but don't identify individuals, because it could cause us problems. It could cause us problems because council doesn't know all of the nuances of the process we've been through, and we could share that with you, but we would have to go into an in-camera forum, and that's not identifying anyone. But I think just give them direction. This conversation shouldn't have happened. Sorry, I really don't think it should have happened.
Thank you, Councillor Miles. Councillor Palashi?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Councillor Miles that this conversation probably shouldn't have been as blown out as it has been. I personally have never brought a university to a city before, so I know you say that it's our decision, but I look to our staff who we've put in this place to deliver what we want them to deliver. I think it's a good motion. It's a symbolic motion on somebody that's been instrumental in the community. I find it funny that you talk about muddying the waters and you hear people saying, well, I'm not going to support that motion, but if you're going to put somebody on it, well, you should put this person and put this person on it too. Like, talking out of both sides of your mouth. Like, I don't get that part of it. Like, it's a symbol. And I have nothing wrong with this symbol. It's up to staff discretion. Nobody's going to come and tell staff what they have to do or bring staff somebody that they want. It's completely up to staff. Staff has the power to meet or not meet, agree or not agree with whomever is on this motion. So again, I'll be supporting it, but I think it's because I'm supporting it because it's symbolic. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Palashi. There is nobody else on the board. Okay, Mr. Clerk, we have Councillor Miles. I don't know whether you want to officially put an amendment forward to put everybody on, or whether that was just a suggestion.
Well, yeah, I'd be happy to make a motion that we change the language to the ribbon panel. Because there's different areas of expertise there.
Okay.
That just motion be thrown in.
So, Mr. Chair, so there are two motions on the floor. The first motion is moved by Councillor Willens, which is moving the staff recommendations 1 and 2 to receive the report and to dissolve the Blue Ribbon Panel and thank the panel members for their participation. The third motion is that staff, as they see fit, invite the Honourable Bill Davis to participate, if necessary, on the continuing work program for the university. Councillor Medeiros has moved an amendment to that main motion from Councillor Willens to include in that third part Mr. J. Paul Massey Singh, which is a proper amendment. My advice to committee would be that Councillor Miles' third amendment I would deem probably contrary at this point. If Councillor Medeiros' motion does not carry, then that could be, you can't do an amendment to an amendment. So we have to dispose of the amendment first.
So I withdraw my amendment. Support Councillor Miles.
Can I just ask, Mr. Clerk, is this now contrary to the original amendment of dissolving the Blue Ribbon Panel?
Through you, Mr. Chair, in my opinion, based on the debate, probably not, because the debate has been about inviting former members to participate if asked by the city, whether it's one member or all members. That's the context of the debate.
Okay. We do have two speakers. Again, Councillor Moore.
Thank you. I am going to ask that at next week's council meeting, there be an in-camera session so that the 7 members of council who are not privy to the nuances that have taken place at the university panel, that there is a full and complete briefing for all members of council of everything that's gone on. I, for one member of this council, feel like I'm feeling my way through the dark. You know, that some members of the committee or of this council have information that the rest of us don't have. And so I don't think that that's fair. So I want a full briefing next week at council, in camera, on everything that's gone on, the nuances that Councillor Miles has talked about. Because we're at a disadvantage. This is completely unfair to 7 of us who don't seem to know everything that's going on.
Okay, hang on.
Well, then, we're in camera, tell us all the confidential information that's gone on. And if you can't tell us, then tell us why you can't tell us next week.
Mr. Slang. Sorry to put you on the spot that way, but is there information that the rest of us need to know about this Blue Ribbon Panel before making any decisions?
I would strongly recommend there's not information that you would need. Since I've started and direction's been to report to council, we've been transparent to
Just
council.
for clarification, I'm not suggesting you take us in camera next week before we dissolve the panel. I think I mentioned at one of our previous meetings that the work of the university panel has been completed and it's time to dissolve the committee. I'm also in agreement that Mr. Davis sitting there as symbolic, ceremonial, on an as-needed basis, if he can be of assistance, and I do think that he stands apart from every other person on that panel who were politically chosen to sit on that panel. Mr. Davis is a former Premier of the province of Ontario. That, in my eyes, makes him completely different from anybody else who sits on that committee. But I'm talking about the work that the university panel did before we dissolve them, hopefully today. I would like to know the work of the committee, so that as the province staff are going off to do your work, we know and understand in which context you're doing that work, based on the conversations that may be confidential that took place at the university panel. But we don't all have all of the information. You know, when you talk about people have different preferences and so on and so forth, if that is impacting or influencing staff's ability or how they move forward, then we need to understand that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Michelle, would you like to reply?
Through you, Mr. Chair. As far as I'm aware, the only information that has not been shared with members of council would be the detailed discussions with potential university partners. And the details of those discussions and the minutes of those meetings were kept confidential to the panel members who were part of those meetings, and then high-level information was shared with the larger Blue Ribbon panel.
And I understand that, Michelle, because they are not members of council. You can't give the public information to members of council, but this council now owns the work of the university, moving this file forward. I don't know why you can't share confidential information to us or with us, and that's my point. And that's what I would like to see us have the conversation, even if it's a conversation about why you can't have the conversation next week in camera.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the detailed discussions with the universities were kept confidential at the request of the universities and not at the request of the Blue Ribbon panel.
Understood. So redact the names, but if there were themes or issues or opportunities or potential that were discussed at those meetings, redacting the name of who the conversation, or if there was a certain, things that would be helpful for members of council. At a high level, I don't need to get down into the weeds on this, but I have no idea whether there's been conversations with 1 or 20 universities. I have no idea how in-depth those were. I think as a member of this council, I have a right to that information.
Through Mr. Chair, we can certainly bring forward a report next week, and we'll ask the city solicitor to determine if that can be in camera.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Last person on the board, Councillor Dillon.
Thank you. I want to speak to the amendment.
Okay.
Councillor Miles, I just want to say I support the amendment. I think from the beginning this has been about the community, and Blue Ribbon panel was about members of our community coming together and providing their input and making the best case for the community of Brampton. And I think it's only, and what better symbolism than including all of them. So I don't think any one person is greater than another person. I think even when we look at our city, I don't think, probably look at the mayor or any councillor as greater than any other person who goes to their regular day job. This is, we live in a community, we work together. Everybody in this city contributes in one way or another, and I think the Blue Ribbon Panel Committee as well, they brought their particular expertise in their fields to the table, and I think that's the greatest symbolism, to show the city of Brampton and the province of Ontario that we're recognizing our community. So I applaud the intention by Councillor Miles, and I support the amendment.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Dillon. Okay, I will turn it over to you, Mr. Clerk. What amendment are we voting on?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Councillor Medeiros has withdrawn his amendment, which was specific to adding Mr. J. Paul Massey Singh to the main motion and part 3 of the main motion from Councillor Willens that identified the Honourable Bill Davis. And Councillor Miles has moved a motion as an amendment now to substitute the Honourable Bill Davis in Part 3 of Councillor Willen's motion to be all former Blue Ribbon Panel members. So in terms of, there's two motions in front of committee. The first is the main motion from Councillor Willens, which has three parts. The second is the amendment from Councillor Miles, and we should take the amendment first.
Okay, we got people back on the board. Councilor Medeiros, this is your second time speaking to the motion.
Thank you. I can speak to the amendment now. Through the chair and to Councillor Miles, it's as see fit as well. So is that my understanding? It would be up to staff's, so basically the same thing that we have already. So we're going through these motions to get back to what we had already. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Councillor Gibson?
Just on question to the clerk, I guess. Councillor Willens' motion is trying to add one person for staff to be able to talk to. The amendment, in my view, would be contrary to what Councillor Willens is trying to do because it adds everybody to it. So if Councillor Miles' amendment passes first, Councillor Willens' original motion is redundant.
Through you,
I would suggest it's contrary.
Through you, Mr. Chair, my advice to committee is it's not contrary, it's inclusive. So if it was exclusive, it would be contrary, but it's inclusive. So whereas the main motion includes one individual, the amendment is to include multiple individuals, including the first individual. So in my view, it's not contrary. If that motion carries the amendment, then we would be voting on Councillor Willens' main motion as amended with the former panel members identified in Part 3 of his motion as opposed to one single person.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, the recorded vote's been requested on the amendment first, which is moved by Councillor Medeiros to substitute the Honourable Bill Davis with former Blue Ribbon Panel members. Councillor Miles, my apologies. All in favor of the amendment, please stand to be counted. Showing in favor is Councillor Sprovieri, Councillor Dillon, Councillor Medeiros, Councillor Fortini, Councillor Miles, Mayor Jeffrey. All opposed to the motion, please stand to be counted. Showing opposed is Chair Bowman, Councillor Paleshi, Councillor Willens, Councillor Moore, and Councillor Gibson. The motion carries, Mr. Chair, 6-5.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, the next motion is the amended motion from Councillor Willens, which is the two staff recommendations plus the third as amended motion to include former panel members in the work program for the university as staff sees fit. And a recorded vote, I understand, was requested on that as well.
We want to receive the report. Didn't we just vote? No, did we not just vote on?
Through you, Mr. Chair, all committee just voted on was the amendment from Councillor Miles.
Okay.
Now, what is before committee is the Councillor Willens' motion, which is the staff recommendation 1, staff recommendation 2, and his third recommendation as amended by that previous amendment.
Okay, can we separate recommendation 1 and 2 from recommendation 3?
That's the will of committee through the chair, yes.
Is that what everybody wants? Okay.
So we'll record a vote on parts 1 and 2 first.
We don't need a recorded vote on that, I don't think. Unless somebody wants one. No.
Do all in favor? If you do all in favor, you have to have
all in favor? That carries.
A recorded vote's been requested on part 3 of Councillor Willens' motion as amended. All in favor of the motion, please stand to be counted. Members of committee, the last vote, the recorded vote that the committee took was to change Councillor Willens' motion, part 3, to substitute the name. It was not to vote whether or not to approve that motion. Committee just voted to approve without a recorded vote parts 1 and 2. Part 3, as amended, still has not been voted on. Part 3, would you like the motion read?
Sure.
Part 3 of the motion is that staff be requested to contact former Blue Ribbon Panel members to invite them to be engaged in the ongoing university work program as staff sees fit to assist in areas that they can assist staff. All in favor of the motion, please stand to be counted.
All in favor?
Showing in favor is Mayor Jeffrey, Councillor Miles, Councillor Fortini, Councillor Medeiros, Councillor Dillon, Councillor Sprovieri. All opposed to the motion, please stand to be counted. Showing opposed is Chair Bowman, Councillor Paleshi, Councillor Willens, Councillor Moore, and Councillor Gibson. Mr. Chair, that motion carries 6-5.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk.
Just one more motion to receive the presentation from Michelle.
We have a motion to receive Michelle's. Thank you very much. Councillor Medeiros, all in favor? That carries. So, I think it's 12:30. Is it the will of council that we break for lunch? How long do you think you'll need for lunch? 1:15? So return to chambers at 1:15. Thank you very much.